closer you can. I promise not to delay it. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Nakama. This has been a real pleasure being a part of, having the opportunity to meet and to chat with people, to exhibit with Mayor's Joy. It's what I've really appreciated is the idea behind the gallery is to engage with people, to be really a part of the arts conversation and the arts community. What I'm going to talk about today, I have my little cheat sheet so I don't over-talk, and if I over-talk, feel free to. But I wanted to just give you a little bit of background about me, and then in particular address recurrence, resistance, and then tell you a little story that happened during my studio visit. Just by way of background, I'm almost a native Buffalonian. I was born in Norfolk. But I was thinking about talking to you all today, and I came out of the womb wanting to create art. And there was a woman, my mother was lovely about bringing my brother and I to cultural events, one of them being the Albright, and I fell in love with the Old Mill by Van Gogh, and what I fell in love was, I didn't have the words to describe it at that time, but the color and the movement, it absolutely made me weep. You know, and my mother saw me crying, and I think she went, this is an art child. But, and I asked for art lessons. And I was thinking about, I asked for and I got, there was a lady that lived kitty corner from us on Winter Road. And what I related to, again, I didn't know, but her eccentricity. Her name was Mrs. Heist. And she would show up to these art lessons in her long blonde hair. And I remember saying to her, do you dye your hair? She said, yes, I do. And she showed up one day in just her her long brown hair and blonde hair. And she would tell me about the gypsies that used to camp where I lived. And she would bring us for rides in her white convertible. And what I didn't realize, very quickly, unfortunately, I would come home with these stories and my mother was like, no more art lessons. But what I related to was the eccentricity. You know, the out there-ness of this woman, and you know, I didn't know that that was part of my makeup at the time, but you know, the classic going to kindergarten, coloring the lines, I never did, I ate the paste, the whole bit. But that was, I walked away really from any kind of formal training until I got to college, and then at college I went to UB, undergrad and grad, fine arts painting. My teachers, Walter Pachonik, Seymour Drumovich, Sheldon Berlin, they were all abstract expressionists. And you know what, they encouraged me to be experimental. And it was kind of a first taste of, you know, my drive really was to be representational in my art. But I found this encouragement to try new things, to get my hands in the paint, to work with eggshells, to try different things. I responded to, you know, and it began kind of a dialogue with where do I want to go with art. Really what I did then though was once I graduated, I had a child very early, so I had this kind of mindset, I can't really do art, I've got to do something more responsible. But my idea of responsible was advertising, go figure. But I did an entire career in advertising. And the advertising, what was good about it was it kind of allowed me to focus on things that were graphic and moreover to focus on things that were conceptual. You know, I was a creative director for ad agencies, did a lot of strategy work, but the concept piece over the years, even though I wasn't painting, I completely walked away from painting. Advertising kind of sucked it all out of me. But the conceptual part was something I got to hone and present on and develop. But I want to just now get to recurrence. The theme of this show has really, again, made me think differently. With recurrence, what I find is, I mentioned these abstract expressionists, what was natural for me is color. I have been asked over and over again, why the color, why the non-representative color? And I would say first and foremost, it's not really something I particularly think of in a didactic way, it's something that is natural to me. It's something, it is my impulse, always was. When I look back at that Van Gogh painting, it was the color that spoke to me. It was the movement of those strokes, and I felt vaguely. I remember looking and thinking, "Oh, I could do that." But you know what? It's a place I want to go. It's a place I always want to naturally go. And even as an undergraduate student, one of my best friends at the time was Kathy Howe. She was the curator at Hollow. She and I were like what is
Two peas in the pod?
that? Yes, peas and carrots. That's what I was trying to think of from Forrest Gump. But she would look at these strokes I would make, these kind of radiating strokes, and go, no, no, no. You know, and the struggle, that internal struggle is what is natural for me, okay. The recurrence part of me will continue to be the color and the movement. I often describe my work as being lit from within. And it's what is, again, very natural to me. I spoke to a group of students about a year ago, and they were asking me, how do you know when a painting is done? It's like, well, I got to zhuzh it. You know, what? But the zhuzhing, it's the contrast, you know, using the yellows and the purples and the reds and the greens, and very specifically, very intentionally throwing these together to create vibration. The recurrence for me is also things that are reasonably but not completely representational. I never had, it was funny, before talking to you all, Mary Joy and I were talking about representational art, and I admire people that can do it. I don't have that skill, but it was always natural for me to abstract things, to abstract nature, to abstract what I see. And I've done figurative work, I've done abstraction, I've done, you know, what I kind of look at as representational. But the recurrence will be in that theme. You know, I wish to, the two pieces on the back wall, the abstract pieces, are very, very new for me. And what I found in doing them is I think they relate to, I've been painting lots of natural things. When I see them, I call them Fulcrum Garden 1, Fulcrum Garden 2. And, you know, there is an element of nature in them. But what, again, is recurring is the movement, the color. Yeah, somebody at the opening said, how do you do that splashy part? So I throw it on the ground and I, you know, but there is a freedom in that. What I have really loved about having an opportunity to do the abstract work is the freedom. And I find it circles back around. You know what? I want to touch on resistance for a minute. I see it two ways. Resistance can be intentionally set up through composition, and what I mean by that is, you know, creating a dynamic tension. You know, that kind of resistance that happens with color. It can also, for me, come in, I don't do that. That's not what I do. You know, and it will go back to that internal dialogue that I know I'm not alone as an artist. You know, we can struggle with, is this valid? Does this have merit? I'm finding more and more it's not a conversation I have to have. The resistance part that is dynamic tension, I think, has great value. I think it creates a need for me to really intentionally approach my artwork, for me to really look at, it can't just all be, you know, it's also got to be some intent for composition. Where do I want the direction to go? What do I want to say? Resistance for me has come also in the what I want to say part. When I first joined the BSA, of which many of you are members, I remember saying to a woman who was president at the time, "Are landscapes valid? Are landscapes valid? Does it still have relevance?" You know what? And I think the struggle in me with do I have to have relevance? It's moot. You know, relevance comes in who's looking. You know, it's I can only do what I do, and I find as I've accelerated my painting experience, being true to who I am and what is reasonable for me is as valid as anything else. I want to touch on the experience I had with when both Christina and Liz came to my studio. They came in, and I had all my work up on my racks, as I want to do. And the first thing Christina said was, "Where's your abstract work?" And I was like, "Oh, oh, you want to see that?" gift. And I started, and I had it kind of shuffled in the back, and I'm pulling it out, and we're looking at the abstract work. And I thought, my whole perspective went, whew. And I thought, that's the value of this kind of thing, the change in perspective. The opportunity to think of things differently. And because Christina and Liz saw value in that, suddenly I saw more value in that, contrary to what I just said. But the two pieces on the walls, it was, they left, I was like, I wanna make more. I gotta make more. And that dialogue that one artist can have with another, I see this in you. Or have you thought about this? Or you know what, I like what you're doing over here. That really created in me a new opportunity to see things from a fresh perspective. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful to be here and have the opportunity to talk to you. I heard so many interesting things at the opening. Questions about my process or questions about, the origin of the work. And it's a real joy because I create work in isolation often. And to have somebody to say, well, let's look at these abstracts. I have since then created, I think, 5 new big paintings, big. And it was as a result of the interaction and the query, that why do we call, this show Resistance and Recurrence? What's behind all of that? I'm so grateful to the comma. I just want to say thank you so much. I don't want to overtalk because there are others that need to talk, but any questions I'd be happy to answer before we move on to the lovely Mary Joy. Yes?
As far as your choice of colors, is it just, you're having a blue day or, now, yeah, I know that's a beautiful dress. It's been said that sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily probably apply to the abstract, but commonly a painting maybe should be 80% of one color and then a small amount of whether it be a complement or that, obviously you're going with the blues and the purples here, and that one little dot of red is awesome, but do you have a concept of where you want to go with color?
Yes and no. Color is pretty intuitive for me, and I'd say with the pieces that are more representational, that's a slightly more obvious answer because there will be an element of, okay, I see sky, and what am I seeing in the sky? I typically see kind of the vibration, and do I want to represent that? But when I said I zhuzh my paintings, I will very specifically look to use complementary colors in order to create vibration. One of the things I used to do was sing. I had some formal vocal training, and that vibratory level is something that I find works into the color too. These things relate. Sure. So for work that's more representational, it can be more specific. I want to use color to create mood and to display, to convey emotion. With the abstract pieces, it's just that I let it be fairly intuitive. I'll come down, I'll pick a canvas, and just kind of, it's a very emotional, intuitive experience. It's like, okay, I want to do half blue, half purple, and now I'm going to grab, what have I got on my palette? I'm going to throw down. So I kind of go back and forth. I tend to be a little more didactic when it comes to composition, but a little less so with color. I let color be very intuitive.
And what is your theory about composition that you might share with us?
Well, it's just, it's not mine. When you think about Joseph Albers, it's the vibration that is set up when you put two complementary colors together. When I have a big swath of purple and I put a little teaspoon of yellow or a big spoon of blue and I put a little orange, it's creating that resistance.
Right.
It's creating that dynamic tension that makes it interesting and creates a focal point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy, are you thinking landscapes when you make your abstract art, or is it strictly you're just laying down a pattern, sort of?
I think it depends on what I did before. If I've just painted a series of landscapes, there's probably